Here we go.
Okay.
Turn up.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm John Higgins, contributing writer to Film and TV Now, and I'd like to welcome one and all to this interview special with Larry Clarke and Fieldlin Edlow, the creative team behind the award-winning web series Bitter Homes and Gardens. They've been described as a latter-day Mike Nichols and Elaine May in terms of comic dynamic, and the duo's series focuses on the conflict of living during a pandemic and creating what could be interpreted as a new abnormal when it comes to the challenges of being in a marriage that could be about to go south or any other direction it wishes. Larry and Fieldlin, a warm welcome to you both.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Thank you.
Honored.
Okay. So there are people out there who might not be familiar with your work, your collaboration. Could you tell us briefly how you both met and when did you decide to create the show format?
That's a great question. I saw Larry in a play in New York, but I did not remember him. It was years ago. And then we met out here in a writer's group. And we ended up doing Strindberg's Miss Julie out here in Hollywood. And then
I told her every night to take a knife and go off stage and slit her wrists, which is the end of Miss Julie. And we fell in love.
And so I guess every night somehow that was a warm bath to me. I'm a native New Yorker, so I like kind of, where people stand. So we started dating and then we fell in love, we got married. And I think that we would go out to dinner with people and they're like, we should be filming you. And then we'd be like, yeah, I am kind of charming when I fight. I do have some things to say. I am an acerbic, vituperative, sassy, I don't know what. So.
But we fight like cat and dogs.
We're a fighting couple.
We're a fighting couple, but we also, in the middle of it, I would be like, I wish we had recorded this because people wouldn't believe what we say to each other. And
we really say the worst things a human being could say to another human being. Yeah. And somehow we managed to be like, you hungry? Should we go to lunch? And I don't know why, I think it may add up, but anyway, we'll talk about the.
I'm way too emotionally invested in my arguments, and she never is. Like, I was raised with a different kind of Irish Catholic put holes in walls kind of thing. And she grew up on the Upper East Side, a Jewish family that when they got angry, they just shut down. They just
sort
quiet.
of go into silent, seething resentment. But anyway,
so we're opposites.
I was commissioned, and I use that very lightly, by my temple to write a piece on forgiveness and this holiday called Sliko. And so I wrote this one act, and somehow everyone seemed to really enjoy it. And it was just really about our bickering, and the rabbi's like, I love that, I relate. And I didn't think, he was running after us. I was like, did I break Judaism? Like, why is the rabbi running after us? And then at the writers group, we had some people say, we will invest in you.
Yeah. So people produced us.
Yeah.
Our little writers group produced us. We did the first season with their help. And then we shopped it around and
we got really close. We were very close to FX.
Yeah, we almost got picked up. But then we got stuck in like the Hollywood development hell, which I think kind of destroys the funny in just about everything. And that was over like 3 years almost.
Well, we were just sort of bounced around different producers. But anyway.
So finally we said, let's just do a season because we were inspired during quarantine how horrible it was.
And we'll be honest, our lives weren't that different in the middle of the pandemic, pre-pandemic. Like, we'll be honest with you, like our marriage was, it was like, here he is in my living room, here we are. It wasn't that different. We're like, we might as well just shoot this. And our director, Dave Rock, who's wonderful. And thankfully we called in all our favors and we got just all of these amazing guest stars who happen to be our friends. And they wanted to do it. Like Billy Gardell from Mike and Molly called me and was like, please put me in the series. And I was like, this was like a bucket list thing. So we were very, very lucky.
Yeah, we're lucky to have a lot of support.
Because if it's just us, I can't think of anything more indulgent than like bickering couple, but we needed the B and C, D, E, F storylines and guest stars. And to actually, my director kept saying, maybe less jokey, a little more story. What is it that you want?
That was good notes. Those were good notes.
Yes, and I listened to those notes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, the funny thing is there's about 3 or 4 questions I wanted to ask you, but you've effectively answered all those in one go, which is quite nice. Because the funny thing is I was going to ask you about what was the start-off point? How much it reflects your relationship dynamic? Was it related to real life experiences? Tell us about your sporting cousin. Okay, well, that sort of cuts that out. But I want to ask you, how long did it take you guys to shoot?
5 days.
6 days.
Well, 6 days.
About 6 days.
We were shooting 11 pages a day, which is an incredible pace. We had one camera.
And especially when my husband is also a director. So there are sometimes a couple of different directors walking around. I don't even want to direct, I just want to put on hair and makeup and scream at my husband, like then I'm happy. But
it's hard to get a crew to work that quickly. You got to know what you're doing. And Dave did a great job. He did a great job. But, we're doing some stuff on the fly and making changes in the moment, depending on, I think the funny is, in other words, you come up with stuff in the moment and you shoot it. And then, I think the real genius was Dave putting it together, because we shot so much.
I'm not the real genius.
Well, you're such a genius.
I'm just kidding. I don't need to be a genius.
But the editing took forever.
Yeah.
And that's really, in filmmaking, that's half of filmmaking is editing. And he's excellent.
But I
He's
also
just
come
an
from an
excellent
improv background. I did Upright Citizens Brigade. And so my greatest joy is improv. And so Chris Fairbanks, who plays my fruit crush, he's such a gifted improviser. Dave Koechner is a legendary improviser. And people, we also just had really kind people. Like I would say, do whatever you want with my words. I'm not precious. And David Koechner would say, no, Fielding, you took the time to write this. And I'm going to say the words. He did
not improvise that much. He did a couple buttons, but he pretty much stuck to your script.
Chris Fairbanks and I had a great time. That was somewhat, sorry to say this to you, but those were my favorite scenes with Chris Fairbanks.
That's fine. I actually enjoyed it too.
Good.
I was looking at the credits. You've got quite a substantial crew. I was looking at the end credits at the very end of episode 10, and you've got quite, obviously in terms of logistics of shooting and during the pandemic, obviously safety must have been paramount. What were the logistics of all that? Did you do lateral flow tests? How did all that work out?
What was that? What did you
flow
say?
Test or
just
COVID
saying
test?
In terms of, you had quite a big crew. How much in terms of managing the, with the whole COVID regulations and stuff? How was that a challenge, or was it?
Yeah, it was a challenge. Pretty much everyone was vaccinated on set and everyone was masked.
But that is a great question.
I think they required tests before they even got started. Everyone had to show their test and their vaccination status. But that did not help. That's one reason why it took us a little bit longer.
But I really felt for the crew. They're working, 10, 12-hour days in a mask. And then, we would have breaks and we try to keep it fun, and the guest stars would keep it really fun. But I really felt for the crew, it's really difficult with the mask, but I think
that's one reason why we shot with a one camera crew, because to have another camera would be another operator and another person that have to be filling up the space. So we just did it with one camera.
But I guess it added an extra element of stress, which we seem to thrive on stress, I guess.
But one camera is not optimal. You like to shoot this kind of comedy with two cameras, so you can kind of catch stuff in the moment and not have to recreate it.
Going forward, probably two cameras.
Yeah, two cameras.
Would be great. But it definitely was on your mind. You're sort of cloaked in this, like, oh my God, like I really don't want anyone on a ventilator because of a digital series. Like,
exactly.
We really tried to be a mother hen and just protect everybody as best I could.
Yeah. Safety is always important when you're shooting, because there's a lot of heavy equipment. We had a large screen that blew over at one point, a diffusing screen, which I was like, guys, what are you doing? Like I told the DP, he's like, well, these aren't my normal guys, because he couldn't even hire his crew because they were too expensive. So we had these fill-in guys who were fine,
we
but
don't have to go into all the mistakes of our crew.
Well,
they were amazing.
I told them, I said, stand on the flags. I said, we don't want anybody hurt on a stupid comedy. It's ridiculous. No one's going to get hurt on this thing. So we put safety as a pretty important.
Yeah, we couldn't even really have a cast party, which we want to celebrate everyone. So everyone celebrates in their living room watching Fielding and Larry parade their character defects on Boyle.
Okay. So I wanted to just ask you both about the state of comedy at the moment, both in observation and topical at the moment, because we've got woke, we've got cancel culture. We've had so many things where it's a little difficult to know, how comedians who are, we try and laugh. I'm really from a time when comedy, you didn't worry about the effect that the comedy had. You just accepted it was escapism. It was just designed to laugh. Where do you guys feel a balance can be struck for working comedians without fear of losing their right to express freely the essence of good comedy. Because we with people like Robin Williams and Saturday Night Live, I mean, it's an interesting period because we want to laugh, but equally there's a fear behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would have shut Robin Williams down right now.
I don't know about that.
They definitely would have. That guy did was press boundaries, and he would say all kinds of outrageous things, which is one reason why he was so funny. I really think that you have to challenge whatever is popular in the status quo. Whatever, you have to challenge it if you want to get people to laugh. You got to walk a line, and not to be totally disrespectful, but once you start putting those, you start confining what comedy is, the comedy goes away, and then people stop laughing.
I think my favorite comedians are, subversive and not careful. And that doesn't mean that we don't have a responsibility to not promulgate, just like really dangerous stuff or words that are really offensive, obviously. Like I have my eye on that. There's some things I don't say anymore, not that I was, you know what I mean? But I do feel like it would be a very pernicious, dangerous thing to get to comedians be censored, because some people say those are the only truth tellers left on some level are comedians. And so, I can even give you an example, like our couples therapist, John Michael Higgins, in our series, he was they, them, we had this thing and, he's they, them. And we're, it looked like we're almost making fun of it, or we're trying to figure it out. I mean, a lot of people secretly have conversations like, I'm actually confused by pronouns. And our director's like, maybe we shouldn't do that. I mean, not to throw, and we had this conversation. I said, no, that's really important to me. Like, this is part of our lives. And actually we have to stop tiptoeing around this thing that we're all afraid of, like the dark star of Twitter, or what culture is going to say, and that people have accrued and assigned themselves too much power in that we're all playing God. We can cancel someone. Like, I just don't, I just feel like we've got to be able to just say our truth. And then,
I mean, I didn't watch the Dave Chappelle episode, but I have seen him do a lot of comedy. I saw him once do when he was actually working that bit out. We saw him live literally for 2 hours at the Improv.
We saw him
talking about whatever. I think it was about that
getting
same thing.
Massage from a transgender
person. And it was a fascinating, he didn't know what he was going to say, and he developed it by having a conversation with the audience. And he was probably the most honest.
It was probably the most honest set I've ever seen in my life.
I was fascinated by how much he wanted to capture his own truth in his own inner dialogue about it. Because he openly said to us, he said, listen, here, I am a Black man, right? And I am judging this woman who wants to give me a massage, but I looked at her hands, and he's like, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I am being prejudiced. I am being judgmental because, and he goes, and is that right? And he kept saying that over and over, and he was asking the audience. And I'm telling you, we were there for almost 3 hours. It was it was a pop-up.
I think what we're saying is you can't go wrong with your, like, we're not for everybody. Bitter Homes is not for everybody. We're not reinventing the wheel, but all you can do is like our absolute unfettered truth. And it can get really dark. And so I think the minute I'm too careful, or, you know what I mean? And it's going to offend somebody. Absolutely. But I mean,
the hard thing is truth. You always have to go for the truth of what you're trying to communicate. And ultimately there's a lot of things in truth. So for example, with us, I would always say, listen, let's keep it closer to what we actually argue about. And we argue about a lot of the crazy things that we present in our series. And it's uncomfortable. For example, that big argument we have about Instagram and me changing my Instagram name. We had a horrible.
That was one of the worst moments of my entire life, when he changed his Instagram handle to The Real Larry. I mean, I wanted to absolutely die, and I think talking about, shame is a big thing in our culture, and embarrassment. But if we can shine a little light on that and make, we even did Tom Papa's podcast, and he asked us, like, did you go that long without having sex? And we were like, yes, because I think I'm just here to entertain. I'm just here to make you laugh. That's it. That's my job. But if I can also make you feel a little bit better about your own relationship.
Yeah. And a lot of people have connected to Bitter Homes is because they feel the same frustrations with their spouse, and they would never say that.
Right.
and there's like, you give voice to some of the frustrations and the things that you just blatantly say. And I think that's what makes it cathartic to laugh at our show.
Hopefully. Yeah. I mean, someone said we were
Hopefully.
like, we're like if the Macbeths pursued vain podcasting projects instead of murder.
Okay, so question for you, Larry, is, I mean, you've worked as a character actor with a lot of key talents. I mean, what are your key ambitions for the future?
Oh, to make my health insurance.
That's your ambition?
Pretty much.
That's not that exciting.
Well, it's harder and harder to do these days.
Why don't you talk about the plays you want to do?
Okay.
You want to return to, he'd love to retire. He'd love to retire to London to do theater.
You know,
in
I would
London.
love to go to London. Are you broadcasting from London?
I am. I'm in Northwest London, but we would welcome you with open arms. I mean,
I
think
love
the Old Vic
London.
and the Globe will be welcome, but I think Shaftesbury Avenue would welcome you, so that's it.
I mean, I am telling you, that is a dream of mine, because every time I've been there, what, once or twice?
We went to the Dunmar warehouse and we saw.
I've only been there
account,
once,
yeah.
and I was blown away by the city. And I just want to be in another country that looks at artists in a whole different manner. We're like a sideshow attraction here in the US. And people laugh at you for being an actor, and they don't do that in London. You know,
much more reverence and respect. I mean, the way people even go to the theater, they're in their seats at 5 of or 10 of.
No one's late in London. No one is late in London.
And then they serve ice cream at intermission.
And if someone is coming in late, you know it's an American, don't you? You know it's an American.
Someone irritated with snacks in their purse, and they're just ruining it.
We were blown away. Went to Ireland, and I saw an amazing play. It was actually a David Mamet play at the Abbey Theater, and everyone was drinking tea beforehand with saucers and china. I want
my husband to just go to Europe.
But that must have been like 300, 400 people all having tea with. I could not believe it. They were all drinking tea at 7:35, and all that was down and nicely put away. And everyone was sitting completely.
Your ambition, so you.
I'm just saying, listen, I am stuck here in Los Angeles. I have a family. We have a kid, believe it or not. We're actually raising a little soul.
We don't want to scare anybody.
I dream of going and doing the stage, because I really love the stage.
Well, you also want to keep working with Steven Soderbergh, who you've made a lot of movies
well,
with.
Listen, I was Steven. I never know. Listen, Steven, I love work. Of course, I'd love to work with Steven Soderbergh. I've done 3 movies with him, but you know, I did Contagion with Steven, and then 9 years went by. I didn't think I'd ever see him again. And then he asked me to do The Laundromat, and I was like, oh, Jesus, okay, let's do The Laundromat. You know, I'm doing a show with on Stars called Heels. It's about the wrestling world, of the really strange world of wrestling. And that will be next season. I'm really looking forward to that, because I think my character is really going to take off. They kind of set him up in the first season. So that's going to be an interesting opportunity. And I'm not kidding about the money. It's harder and harder to make a living in this business. The residuals are going down. The opportunities aren't being presented in the same way. Right. And so that is the subject. Okay. Can you mind?
Sure.
Can you mind?
Okay.
So I am appreciative of the work that I get. And that's really, you know, that's the way I look at it. But if there's a collaborator out there, if somebody wants to reach out to me, I'd love to do a show in London.
I would love my husband to have a second pied-à-terre residence in London and just be there for half the year. That would be
I'll be happy to be your guide at some point. I mean, I've been in London 33 years, so believe me, you'd be more than welcome. It's a lot of drinking and stuff. So you can order your beers at the beginning before the interval. So that's what you can do. So Fielding, I've got to ask you, you've gained success as a writer, performer, and stand-up comedian. I mean, given the effect of the times of Me Too and all this other stuff that's going on, where do you feel you and other similar female talents are going to gain gravitas for your work in the future? I mean, in terms of making progress, because obviously now it's a very serious subject, and you're building, you know, your own brand. I mean, obviously, hopefully Bitter Homes and Gardens will evolve and do some more for it. I mean, where would you feel, what would you like to see happen?
In terms of the Me Too, you're asking.
Well, in terms of the effect that that's had, and what you got, you know, we've had the women's marches and stuff recently and stuff. I mean, what are you and your circle of network of comedians, you know, what are you sort of hoping to happen?
I think we're more and more, I'm hoping that you hear very strong voices, let's say on social media. And I want that to translate more to things that when they happen in the moment and talking about it in the moment, and then talking to the booker or talking to your friends instead of this sort of almost heretic or just this like friends whipping up into a frenzy, which is helpful and we've needed it. But so, for example, I run a show called Eat, Pray, Fuck at the Hollywood Improv. And I always do half women, half men. But that's unfortunately not that, it's getting more common, but you'll still see lineups with all men. So for me, it's about, working with women, talking to women, giving like up and coming comics a hand. And again, just like, we're talking about being present or being the real, it's just being accountable and just, again, it's like addressing things in the moment. I feel like a male comic gave me a note from the stage. 5 years ago, I would have maybe eaten a cake over it that night and or just been like, silent, seething. And I, from the audience said, hey, here we go. A man giving me a note from the stage. How interesting. Like I just shouted that out and he apologized and shut up and complimented my act and got off. So I feel like just women need to be more vociferous and just like right then and there, just dealing with whatever it is. And if not, or going to the police or whatever you need to do.
Go to police.
Well, I'm not talking about the stage. I'm not
you get a note?
I'm not doing citizen's arrest on the guy on the stage, but I mean to the extreme, and then go, getting everybody more accountable and having more parity from like people at Largo to the top people to the open mics in Echo Park, here.
Artists have always been seen as heretics, and since we've always been outcasts.
But I'm talking about we don't need like a type of the frenzied witch hunt. I'm just talking about women just giving themselves more power and not behaving so apologetically. Like even when I book a show, men reach out to me every month. They're just so much more persistent sometimes than women. And I just think in all avenues, just like just getting behind yourself and following up and speaking. I'm just like, Roseanne Barr said, no one gives you power. You just have to take it. So I'm trying to, without being obnoxious about it, but I think women are so afraid of being the bitch, You
can't quote Roseanne anymore.
See, that's the thing. Well, I love Roseanne.
She's on the list.
Well, whatever. Roseanne's was, she was a visionary for,
she was
the American housewife. She broke that open for everybody.
I love Roseanne.
We love Roseanne.
I don't like her.
Yeah.
So we're about to wrap up. We've got 3 final questions. The first one is what's next for Bitter Homes and Gardens? Are you going to expand it into a bigger format? And will we see a movie at some point?
Oh, nobody's ever asked us that question.
A movie?
I have never even thought that, John.
Let's do it. People can barely stand to watch us for our little 5-minute segments.
8 minutes. Well, let's not put it that way. We're like in a amuse bouche. It's a great. I personally would love to expand to 30 minutes with other guest stars. So we're in the process of my manager. We're going to go out and try to sell it in January 2022 to Hulu or Netflix.
We've got some
HBO
things cooking.
Max.
We've got some people interested. It's
But we would stay at 8 minutes. I think it's more about like what family or what home we end up in, and then what's best for the show.
What's great about a short format is that you can get to the heart of an argument very quickly and then kind of get out. And you can it's a really interesting way of approaching this kind of comedy and this kind of dynamic. And once you start making it a little bit longer, not to say that we're not interested in doing that, I just think that this has popped up because it's also more affordable. People's attention spans
I love writing 8 minutes.
Getting people to.
Can I talk as the writer?
I know, but getting people to watch anything these days.
Right. People
very difficult.
The feedback we've gotten. Also, I'm a very, I dark comedy. So I think 8 minutes lends itself to my voice on some level, but it's a movie. It's funny. I know when I watch Sex and the City movie, I'm like, It's not the series, but
But
it's
you
like,
loved that movie.
I love the movie.
She
But
loves
you know
that.
what? I
actually liked
appreciate
it
you
too.
bringing that up. I appreciate
Yeah.
you bringing.
Well, the thing is I think there's an interesting thing there. I think there is something there which you know, maybe not at the moment, but you know, like anything, it seems to me that's always the next logical step. I mean, I think expanding it to 30 minutes, I think it's just right at the moment anyway. And I like the fact that you've got these little segments and observations, and I think that's what it is. So my final two questions is, how has doing this show helped you in a cathartic way during the recent challenges?
Of our marriage.
Well, just generally, I mean, obviously, because you know you're reflecting what life is. I mean, we have found that, you know, there's been it's been a problematic thing because people are always drawn together. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
they go out and stuff. I mean, how has that helped you guys?
I think it's helped us a great deal. I mean, to me, as an artist, to facilitate my wife's voice, yeah, that's how it started. Facilitate your voice, because you know, I first was exposed to her writing. She writes plays. She's written a lot of brilliant plays, and they've been performed, and she's done a lot of readings of them and whatnot. But she hasn't really gotten her pilots, and her movies they haven't gone. So this was a chance for us to explore Fielding's writing, and I really wanted to show the world how you know how great her writing is, and to explore that, and then to put her in it.
He's
And
talking about
obviously,
but why is it? But it's, you
well,
know,
that's
it's
been
cathartic.
great.
I mean, now it's
that is
cathartic for our
cathartic.
marriage because it's my husband supporting me, and like, not that it has to be all about me, but I feel like, you know, it gives me great joy to know that we were able to entertain people during the pandemic and beyond. And it gives you, you know, I feel like it's, you know, Freud was like, love and work, what else is there, you know, and we actually are able to conflate those two, which is pretty remarkable. So, you know, it gives you a sense of purpose, and to feel like, I think it's when someone's like, you know, I related to that so much, that happened to me, you know, I mean, there's no greater response. And
Yeah.
you know, when I go up to do a show now, and they introduce me as Bitter Homes and Gardens, and you know, you see little by little, you're seeing more and more people recognize it. It's just really satisfying.
It was great to be working again too, considering how dark it got over here during the quarantine period. The beginning of the pandemic, all the way through 2020 was a dark period. I mean, it was one of the worst times in my life in this country. Like, it was just horrible.
But
and
even
to
like,
not be able to get out of the house, to have all the racial strife and societal strife, the money challenges. I mean, everything was falling apart. Out here, we had the fires. You couldn't even breathe.
but even some of my favorite moments was hanging back. So, you know, Christine Woods, who's an incredible actress who plays my best friend, who's kind of, it's one of those, like, you know, she's always undermining me in the series, but she's a lovely person. She was 9 months pregnant,
9
literally.
months.
And my favorite things was just like all the crew bringing her like pears and apples and grapes, and our conversations in between shooting. You know, those are the moments that really filled me, to be
Yeah,
honest.
and to call your good friends, who I love, friends that are really talented, that you call upon them and you all meet together and you do what you love, but at the same time, we're kind of inspiring each other on set with projects. That's a great thing for us to be able to celebrate. And that to me is incredibly therapeutic.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much, Larry and Fielding, for your time and insights today. Do check out, this is for general, check out the show online. Also go to bitterhomesandgardens.com for more information. Larry, Fielding and the show have active social accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram that you can follow and subscribe to. Go and check out the social media for that respect. And for more articles, interviews, and reviews like this, please go to filmandtvnow.com for more exciting news about present upcoming articles, reviews, and interviews. And we thank you very much. And Merry Christmas to you, Larry and Fielding, and Merry Christmas to everyone out there. So thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you,
Thank
John.
you. Cheers.
Thanks, John.
Cheers.